Virginia, 1885. In a small print shop in Lynchburg, a pamphlet goes on sale for 50 cents, the price of a fortune, if you believe what's printed inside. 3 long columns of numbers fill its pages. One column has already surrendered its secret. It speaks of thousands of pounds of gold and silver, a hoard of jewels, and a vault lined with stone, buried somewhere in the hills of Bedford County. A second column, still locked, is said to mark the exact spot. A third supposedly names the men who buried it and the families still waiting to inherit. More than 140 years on, both locked messages remain unsolved. No vault has ever been authenticated. No original document has survived for independent examination, and the man said to have started it all has never been conclusively proven to exist. If the story is true, tens of millions of dollars in gold and silver may still be waiting under Virginia soil. If it is false, then someone engineered one of the most durable deceptions in American history, built so carefully that every failed attempt to solve it only deepened the legend. The story begins not with treasure, but with a book. Its title was The Beale Papers. Printed in Lynchburg in 1885, its copyright was registered to a man named James B. Ward, who described himself only as the publishing agent. The person actually telling the story chose to stay invisible. According to the narrator, the ciphers had swallowed years of his life, time, money, attention that should have gone to his family and to ordinary living. He said he was publishing the papers now only because he could carry the search no further. It read like a confession. It also read like flawless advertising. The narrator said the mystery had first been entrusted to him by Robert Morris, a real Lynchburg businessman and hotel keeper. Local accounts remembered Morris as solid, hospitable, a man people trusted. In the pamphlet, that reputation does real work. He becomes exactly the kind of man a stranger might hand a dangerous secret to and simply walk away. And in January of 1820, the story says, that stranger walked through his door. He called himself Thomas J. Beale. Morris would later describe him as educated, self-possessed, unusually guarded, a man who gave little away. Beale stayed for several weeks, then rode west with 2 companions. 2 years passed before he came back. This time, before he left again, he placed a locked iron box in Morris's care. He offered no real explanation for what it held, only a request. Keep it secure until he or someone he authorized returned to claim it. Then, on May 9, 1822, a letter reportedly reached Morris from St. Louis. Beale wrote that the box held papers connected to his own fortune and the fortunes of several other men. If none of them ever returned, Morris was to leave it sealed for 10 years. A friend, Beale promised, would deliver the key to the coded pages in June of 1832. The key never arrived. Beale never returned. Even after the 10 years had passed, Morris still didn't open the box. According to the pamphlet, he waited until 1845, 23 years after it first came into his hands. Inside were a handful of letters, and 3 sheets crowded almost edge to edge with numbers. The letters told an astonishing story. Beale claimed that in 1817, he and 29 other men had ridden out of Virginia toward the western frontier. They reached Santa Fe, then still Spanish territory, and spent the winter there. Come spring, a handful of the men set off north to hunt. Weeks later, they rode back with news that changed everything: a rich deposit of gold. The full party is said to have moved into a remote ravine, hundreds of miles north of Santa Fe, and begun pulling precious metal from the ground. No independent historical record confirms this expedition, not exactly as the pamphlet tells it. Every detail comes filtered through one anonymous publication. And yet the story is anchored in real geography, real travel routes, in an era when much of the American West was still blank space on the map. That combination is exactly what makes it so hard to dismiss. The legend continued. By the summer of 1819, the group had pulled more wealth from the ground than they could safely protect. so they chose Beale, trusted him to carry it east, and hide it in Virginia until the others made their way home. The first deposit was allegedly placed in the ground that November. A second followed in December of 1821. Along the way, the story claims, some of the silver was traded in St. Louis for jewels, lightening the load. Even after that exchange, what remained was extraordinary. The decoded inventory is precise. 2,921 pounds of gold, 5,100 pounds of silver, jewels valued at $13,000, a fortune in the money of the time. The metal alone, gold and silver together, would have weighed more than 4 tons. This was never a small strongbox slipped quietly under a coat. Moving that much material across a continent would have taken wagons, draft animals, provisions, almost certainly more than one pair of hands. It would have been slow, expensive, and nearly impossible to hide from every witness along the way. The enormous scale is what makes the story unforgettable. It is also one of the strongest reasons to doubt it. Morris spent years staring at those numbered pages and got nowhere. Near the end of his life, in 1862, he reportedly passed the entire mystery on to the anonymous narrator. That man also struggled for years. Then came the discovery that turned a private obsession into a national legend. The second sheet, it turned out, could be read using the Declaration of Independence as the key. The method was a book cipher. Number every word of the Declaration in order. Let each number in the cipher point back to its matching word. Take only the first letter of that word, and a hidden message begins to surface, letter by letter. A number pointing to a word that starts with T yields a T. Another, landing on a word beginning with H, yields an H. Repeated hundreds of times in sequence, a page of meaningless digits becomes readable English. And what it spelled out was exactly what a treasure hunter would dream of finding. A vault, the message said, built in Bedford County, roughly 4 miles from a spot called Buford's, 6 feet below the surface. 2 deposits of gold and silver, the jewels mentioned by name, all of it packed inside a rough lining of stone. Then came the most important promise of all. Paper number 1, it said, held the exact location. Paper number 3 held the names and residences of the partners, along with the relatives who were meant to inherit their shares. The solved cipher proved just enough to make the 2 unsolved pages irresistible. One page confirmed there was treasure. Another promised the map to find it. The third promised names that could prove the entire story true. But the Declaration of Independence unlocked nothing else. Applied to Cipher One and Cipher Three, it produced only fragments, scattered letters, static, nothing readable. If these really are book ciphers, each one must depend on a different text entirely. Texts that may have disappeared almost 2 centuries ago. For generations, hopeful codebreakers tried everything. Bibles, legal documents, political speeches, popular novels, private letters, countless variations in spelling and word counting. Then computers arrived, and the search expanded far beyond anything the original narrator could ever have imagined. Still, no proposed solution to Cipher One or Cipher Three has gained independent acceptance. Plenty of people have claimed success. Some produced a scattered phrase or two. Others announced coordinates or hidden instructions. But without a method anyone else can repeat, and without physical evidence to confirm the result, a claim is not a solution. Eventually, investigators began asking a more unsettling question. What if the ciphers were never meant to be solved? Every fact we have about Beale, the box, the letters, the 3 numbered sheets passes through a single filter, the 1885 pamphlet. The original papers vanished. No confirmed member of the supposed 30-man expedition ever came forward. No family archive produced the promised key. And no undisputed historical record identifies a Thomas J. Beale as the leader described in the story. Then there are the inconsistencies inside the pamphlet itself. The anonymous narrator claims he sorted the 3 cipher sheets by length before numbering them. Yet the documents known today as 1, 2, and 3 run to roughly 520, 763, and 618 numerical entries. That is not an order based on length, not even close. So if the numbering was added by the narrator himself, how did he know which unsolved page described the location and which one listed the heirs? Another detail seems almost too convenient. Cipher 2, the only message anyone can actually read, conveniently tells the reader that paper number 1 contains the exact location. To skeptics, this doesn't sound like a practical instruction passed between men protecting a shared secret. It sounds like the final hook in a sales pitch. The one working cipher confirms the prize, then points straight at the page that refuses to open. Cipher 3 creates a different problem. It's supposed to hold the names and residences of 30 partners, plus the names and addresses of their relatives, twice the information, packed into a page shorter than Cipher 2. Perhaps the information was compressed. Perhaps abbreviations did the work. But the space available looks awfully tight for everything it was meant to contain. The timeline is disputed too. The pamphlet has Morris meeting Beale while running the Washington Hotel in January of 1820, but later researchers turned up a Lynchburg newspaper notice suggesting Morris didn't open the Washington Inn until December of 1823. The historical record may be incomplete. The hotel's name may have changed over time. Morris may have worked the property before formally taking it over, but the discrepancy sets a documented date against one of the story's most pivotal scenes. Language analysis has raised further doubts. Researchers compared the letters attributed to Beale with the surrounding prose written by the anonymous narrator and found real overlap in sentence structure, punctuation, vocabulary, rhythm. Some concluded the same hand may have written both voices. They also flagged words that seem unusual for a letter supposedly composed in 1822. None of this proves fraud by itself. Stylistic analysis can suggest shared authorship, but it cannot establish it with certainty. A copyist may have edited the letters, a publisher may have modernized the language, and a word that looks anachronistic today can sometimes turn out to be older than we thought. But the pattern strengthens one uncomfortable possibility, that Beale and the narrator came from the same pen. Then, in 1980, cryptanalyst James Gillogly sat down with the numbers again and found something stranger still. He applied the declaration key to Cipher 1, the page said to hold the location. Almost everything that came out was meaningless, but buried inside that noise sat something eerily orderly. A broken run of the alphabet, marching almost from A to P. Not a readable message, but far too structured to be pure coincidence. Gillogly argued the sequence could be a fingerprint, the trace left by someone constructing a fake cipher, perhaps testing or arranging numbers without ever encoding real text beneath them. For many skeptics, it remains one of the strongest single clues that Cipher 1 was manufactured. But even here, the mystery refused to close. Computer scientist Carl Hammer ran his own analysis on the two unsolved ciphers and reached a different conclusion. Their numbers didn't behave like a simple random list. To Hammer, the structure suggested an underlying system and possibly genuine encoded text. Believers point to that finding often, and for good reason, but structure alone does not prove treasure. A skilled hoaxer can build patterns deliberately. A genuine cipher can look artificial when tested with the wrong key. And a sequence generated by pure method, with no hidden message at all, can still carry its own internal order. The same evidence, pointing to opposite conclusions at once. Historical research offers one more fragment. Among files later released through the National Security Agency's historical collection, researcher Carl Nelson surfaced an April 1820 Missouri newspaper notice, an unclaimed letter for a man named Thomas Beale waiting at the post office in Franklin. Different spelling, no middle initial, no proof this man had any connection to the ciphers at all. Still, Franklin was a major gathering point for travelers heading west, and the date roughly fits the pamphlet's own timeline. A real record, a similar name, a plausible place at a plausible time. And it proves almost nothing. That is the nature of the Beale mystery. Every promising clue arrives stitched to its own reason for doubt. More recent researchers keep testing the legend against land records, family histories, Western travel documents. Some argue Beale may genuinely have existed. Others believe identifiable men may have belonged to his party. A few suspect the treasure, if it was ever real, was quietly moved from its first hiding place. These are interpretations, not established conclusions. No authenticated physical evidence has verified any of them. But they matter because they explain why the mystery survives at all. The historical record is thin, yet not empty. The ciphers look suspicious, yet not obviously random. The pamphlet reads like fiction, yet keeps handing researchers real details worth chasing. The case remains suspended between two stories. In the first, Thomas Beale is real, a frontier traveler who hauled an immense fortune across half a continent, buried it in the Virginia hills, and trusted the wrong chain of people to keep the key alive. In the second, there was never any treasure at all. The entire story was built by a writer who understood, with unsettling precision, how to make every reader complicit in their own deception. The one solved cipher offers certainty. The two unsolved ciphers offer hope. The missing originals make final proof impossible. The vague location leaves endless ground still to search. And every contradiction cuts two ways: proof the story is false, or proof the true details were deliberately concealed. Even the anonymous narrator's warning works both ways. He claimed the puzzle had consumed years of his own life, and urged readers not to neglect family, work, and duty the way he had. But then he printed every number. He sold the booklet for 50 cents, and he placed the mystery directly into the hands of the public. Perhaps that was the real mechanism all along. Not a map meant to guide one person to a hidden vault, but a machine built to recruit every new reader into carrying the search forward. One readable message was all it ever needed. Enough proof to make the next answer feel possible. Enough doubt to keep it forever out of reach. The responsible conclusion today is not that the treasure exists. It is also not that every part of the story has been disproved. No publicly verified decoding points to a recoverable site. No authenticated vault has ever confirmed the pamphlet's claims. The strongest documentary and linguistic evidence leans toward a literary construction, quite possibly shaped, at least in part, by someone connected to the 1885 publication. And yet, a handful of historical coincidences, numerical patterns, and unresolved questions keep the final door open, just a crack. Somewhere inside those pages, a message may still be waiting for the one book nobody has tried yet. Or there may be nothing but the shadow of a message, built by a 19th century storyteller who understood something timeless about human nature. People will chase a secret far longer when they've already been shown one true answer. The Beale treasure may still lie beneath the hills of Virginia. It may have been moved. It may have been recovered quietly long ago, or it may never have existed at all. But the deepest part of this mystery is no longer 6 feet underground. It lives in the distance between evidence and belief. Until someone produces the original papers, a reproducible solution, or the vault itself, the Beale ciphers will remain balanced on that narrow line. 3 numbered documents, 1 readable message, and 2 locked doors that may lead to a fortune, or to the mind of the person who invented it.